The waves were only a murmur now, a pulse behind the hush of night. They had ridden until the cliffs fell away into gentler land, where wild grass bowed beneath the sea wind, and the earth smelled of iron and salt. When they finally stopped, it was on a rise overlooking a dark stretch of the coast, a faint shimmer of the Vale of the Lyrines glimmering far ahead. Raphael dismounted first, his boots sinking into the damp soil. "Here," he said quietly, "we rest." They set about their work in silence, practiced in the rhythm of routine. Joaquin gathered driftwood from a nearby hollow. Caleb worked to tether the horses, and Jihye unfolded her cloak beside the low stone ridge that would serve as shelter. The light had faded almost entirely. Only the stars burned bright above, reflected in thin pools that dotted the grassland. When the campfire caught, its orange light painted their faces in soft, flickering relief. For a while, they ate in quiet, bread and dried fish, the last of Joaquin's salted roots, until Raphael broke the silence with a voice that was more weary than stern. "We need to talk." Jihye looked up. The words had waited since the caves. "About what happened?" she said. Raphael nodded. "Yes. Start with what you felt down there before the god unraveled." She hesitated, unsure how to make sense of it. It was like being seen. Not by eyes, but by something that reached inside. "I thought the air would crush me, and then it stopped." She drew in a slow breath. "I think it saw the amulet." Raphael's eyes flicked to her coat. "Show me." Wordlessly, she reached into her pocket and drew it out. The bronze disc was dull now, the etched lines along its surface barely visible in the firelight. She placed it into his palm. He turned it over slowly, his thumb tracing the edge, and then the faint sigils engraved upon its face. His expression tightened. The firelight caught in his eyes, and for a heartbeat, Jihye thought she saw fear there, quickly buried beneath restraint. Raphael said nothing. He examined the amulet for a long while, running his fingertips across its surface, as though trying to feel for something beneath the metal. Then he looked up, meeting her gaze with a kind of gravity that made her stomach twist. "Where did you find this?" he asked finally. "In Valerian's vault," she said. "Years ago, when he still trusted me. He said it was a trinket from the old world, useless but pretty. I kept it." Raphael nodded once, but did not reply. He seemed far away, the way a man looks when trying to recall a dream just before it fades. "What is it?" Jihye pressed. His gaze stayed on the amulet. Then he handed it back to her, careful not to touch her fingers. "Keep it close," he said simply, "and do not let anyone else handle it." That was all. Jihye frowned but obeyed, slipping the amulet back into her coat. The metal felt warm again, as though the fire had seeped into it. Raphael leaned back, his eyes on the flames. "And the siren's words? The thing beneath your heart?" Jihye hesitated, and then spoke softly. "It was not a lie. I can shift into other things, not easily and not without pain. But lately it feels like something else wants to take shape, something that is not a fox and not familiar." "What kind of something?" Joaquin asked quietly. I do not know, she admitted. It feels old, hungry. Every time I shift, it presses harder as if it wants to see the light. The fire crackled between them, and Raphael's expression darkened. Then it is not just the amulet, he murmured. Whatever the siren sensed, it's bound to you somehow. He stared into the fire for a long moment before glancing at Joaquin. I wish I had my books, he said under his breath. Joaquin straightened. There is a town not far inland, Campbellworth. It is small but well provisioned, and there is a scholar there, Edrin, who keeps one of the best private collections in the region. My father corresponded with him once. He may allow us access to his library. Raphael nodded slowly. Then we head there next. We will resupply and see what knowledge we can find. The decision settled like a stone in the center of their circle. The night grew deeper, the tide below whispering faintly against the rock. Jihye watched the firelight curl across Raphael's face, the shadows sharpening his profile. He caught a glance, but said nothing more. When sleep came, it came uneasily. The morning broke with a thin veil of cloud over the sea. They packed quickly, the chill wind biting their fingers as they cinched straps and checked gear. By mid-morning, the coast had receded behind them, replaced by rolling meadows and distant fields dotted with wind-stunted trees. By evening, they reached Campbellworth. It was larger than Jihye had expected, more town than village, but smaller than a city. Stone walls half covered in ivy encircled the settlement, and the scent of salt mingled with bread and smoke drifting from the bakeries within. Children ran across the cobbled square, and traders shouted from market stalls lined with fruit, fish, and cloth. For a moment, it almost felt safe. They lodged at an inn in the eastern edge of town, a place called the Copper Heron, whose sign creaked gently in the sea wind. Inside, the warmth and smell of roasting meat greeted them. That night, they sat by the hearth with bowls of stew and fresh bread, listening to the chatter of merchants and sailors. Caleb, cheeks flushed from ale, laughed more freely than he had in weeks. Joaquin traded stories with a group of hunters who seemed enchanted by his tattoos. Even Jihye felt some of the tension ease from her shoulders. Raphael, however, remained quiet. His mind was elsewhere, already in the scholar's house. The next morning, they parted ways. Caleb went towards the market to gather supplies for the road. Salted meats, dried fruit, and barley flour. Joaquin and Jihye set out towards the western quarter, where weaponsmiths and apothecaries plied their trades. And Raphael, with his cloak drawn close and purpose in his stride, made for the scholar's district. The scholar's house stood near the heart of Campbellworth, a tall, narrow structure of pale stone. Vines crawled along the facade, and brass lanterns hung in the windows, their light glimmering even in daylight. Raphael knocked once upon their heavy oak door. It opened to reveal an elderly man with silver hair and sharp, inquisitive eyes. "Yes," he said, tone cautious but polite. "My name is Raphael," the sorcerer said. "I was told you might share your library with those who appreciate its worth." The man's expression shifted from suspicion to delight. "A fellow student of the unseen! Come on in, come on in. I am Edrin of Campbellworth, servant of knowledge and collector of dust." The interior was exactly what Raphael had hoped for. Shelves stretched to the ceiling, filled with books whose spines were worn smooth with time. The air smelled of parchment and ink, and sunlight slanted through the high windows, turning the dust motes into drifting gold. They spoke for a while over tea, Edrin eager to hear of Raphael's travels, of old ruins and fragments of magic still found in the world. He asked questions that cut deep, and laughed at answers that surprised him. When at last Raphael mentioned his purpose, the old scholar's expression softened into curiosity. "You seek knowledge of a god," Edrin said thoughtfully. "Most who come to seek me seek to summon one, not study it. You are wiser than most." "I hope so," Raphael said quietly. Edrin nodded. "You may read here. I will leave you in peace. I suspect the answers you find will not want to be found." Raphael bowed his thanks and set to work. Hours passed. He read of old pantheons, of gods born from storms and dreams, of bindings written into stone and blood. None spoke of Arcanthus directly. The name was always avoided, replaced with euphemisms, such as the devourer of tongues, the silent depth, or he who watched the end. He was beginning to think the search hopeless when he found a narrow black notebook wedged between two ledgers. It was unmarked, its pages brittle with age. Inside, the writing was tight and slanted, a diary rather than a record. The author spoke of temples drowned by time, of sacrifices in the dark, and of a final act of defiance, a binding forged not with magic, but with something greater. Raphael led on, but most of the entries dissolved into fragments, ink washed away by damp. When he reached the end, he sighed, ready to close the book. Then a thought struck him, a single line buried among the fading text. He reread it once, then again. Something in it pulled at his breath. He rose abruptly, the notebook clutched tight in his hand. His gaze darted to the shelves, scanning titles, pulling volumes one after another, searching for the pattern that had just revealed itself in his mind. He gathered what he could into a satchel, the urgency in his movements breaking his usual calm. Outside, the afternoon sun had turned gold. Raphael stepped into the street, his cloak billowing in the wind, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Whatever he had seen, it had changed something. He walked quickly, almost running now, the bag of books clutched to his side. He did not stop until the inn came into view.